Hey everybody, it's Joe with J Blake Photo. Welcome to another video. Thanks for stopping by. So I normally shoot with pretty much 3 lenses, I think is what I carry in my bag. One is my, this is the Canon 17 to 40 f4L. This is the first L lens that I bought from Canon. I love this lens. It is really phenomenal and takes amazing landscape photos. And even at f4, creates some really amazing out of focus elements, that blur bokeh that we're all looking for. Love this lens. The next lens that I shoot with is the big guy, right? This is the Canon 70 to 200 f2.8 IS2. I think rumors are that there's a version 3 coming out, or maybe it's already been released. This is one of my favorite lenses. I shoot pretty much anything that I can with this lens. It is tack sharp. The zoom control is amazing. It really is an L series lens, which I think stands for luxury. The build quality is phenomenal. I really love this lens. And the image stabilization on this particular lens is 4 stops, so just fantastic. The third lens that I normally shoot with is actually on the camera right now. This is the lens that I probably use the most. And it is by far my favorite lens. And it is the Tamron 24 to 70 f2.8. They don't use the same terminology that Canon does, but this lens comes with what they call vibration compensation, which is IS, or image stabilization in the Canon world, and it is up to, I think it's 3 stops, it might be 2. And since Canon doesn't have a 24 to 70 f2.8 with image stabilization, there's the 24 to 105 kit lens with IS, but it's only an f4. This lens really fits into that niche area that I needed. It gives me both wide angle capability, gives me zoom capability up to 70 millimeters. It is extremely sharp, and it gives great image stabilization. Really just an all-around great lens. The only 2 downsides that I would say to this particular lens are that when it focuses, it's a little noisy, although so is this one. This one's pretty noisy, pretty clicky when it stabilizes, or rather when it focuses. This one is silent when it focuses. It's really, really quite good. Can't use this for everything I use that for, though. You'll also occasionally hear me mention my 50 millimeter lens. This is the Canon f1.8 50 millimeter. Some people call this the thrifty 50 because it's the 1.8 version. You can normally get this for under $150. This is the STM version, the stepping motor version. Love this lens. Just absolutely phenomenal lens. So I've got these 3 lenses, or 4 lenses, that are normally in my bag. I primarily shoot with the one that's attached to the camera now, and then depending on the situation, I'll switch to these other lenses. But those are not the only lenses that I own. I actually have a number of lenses that are designed for analog or film cameras. So this is a Canon AE1. This is one of their very popular film cameras. And this camera was my dad's, and it actually has a number of lenses with it. And so what I thought I would do today, what I thought I would talk about, and maybe do some examples on, are adapting these analog lenses, these manual lenses, these FD mount lenses, to the new EOS EF mount, the electronic mount, and to see what we can get out of it. I think that would be exciting. So I want to kind of go over these different lenses, how I adapt them, how I attach them, and then we'll go out in the Las Vegas heat. It's about 113 today, and we'll see if we can't get some good photos. I'm going to wait just a little bit until golden hour so that we can get some really high quality. That's in a couple of hours, and then we'll come back here and we will take a look at them and see how they look. Okay, so let's take a look at adapting these lenses onto the camera. Okay, so here we are with a handful of Canon FD mount lenses. I've also got the actual Canon AE1 that these lenses were originally purchased for. So this was my dad's first camera, his first SLR camera. There are tons of family photographs that we have that were photographed with this camera. This is a great camera. I'm probably going to do a whole series on shooting with this camera and kind of going back to analog. So I have attached to it right now the 28 millimeter. It's a 28 mil f2.8 that's on this camera now. And then I've also got a 50 millimeter f1.4 here. I have a 100 mil, and I don't know what the aperture rating looks like. It's also an f2.8 on this one, so it's a 100 mil f2.8. And then I've also got a 135 mil. Looks like this is an f35, also 1.28. So all of these lenses are primes. These are not zoom lenses. This one actually has, check this out, this one actually has like an extendable hood, because it's technically a zoom lens at 135 millimeters. So that is just super cool. I've also got this cool thing. So this is, you can see that kind of. So this is a macro adapter. So this is designed to go between the lens and the camera to make it macro, I guess. I'm not really sure. I figured we'd kind of play with this, and yeah, here we go. It says right on there. It's a Vivitar. You can read that there. Vivitar 2x macro focusing teleconverter. So it looks like this is going to be a 2x teleconverter, but it also adds macro functionality, so you can get super close focusing out of there. So that'll be super fun. So I kind of figured that we take a couple of these and try them out. Now, I want to be able to film with this camera here, which is the 6D Mark II, which is my full frame camera, just because it's so much easier to shoot with that one. And then I thought that for testing purposes, we'd pull out the old Canon 7D Mark I. Now right now this has the 50 millimeter lens attached to it. I think STM stands for single stepping motor? I think it's stepping motor. Anyway, it's really good at focusing for video, which is great, especially with some of camera's kind of entry-level video focused DSLRs. Okay, so first things first, we need to convert these, which have, if you look here, this is the FD mount, which was originally released for this type of camera here, and we need to convert it to an EOS mount, right? So here's what an EOS mount looks like. This is my Tamron 24-70 f2.4. Any Canon lens that you have is going to look like this. So you can see it's got the bayonet connector, and then it's got that those digital pins for the focusing system. Okay, so we need to adapt this to match. And there's a couple of things that we have to be aware of when we do that. Number one, and it depends on the type of adapter that you have. So this is the adapter that I have. It does have a glass intermediary or glass filter in the middle. So that will potentially reduce the quality of your image. This is a cheap one. I think I got this for about 10 bucks. I've hacked at it with a screwdriver a couple of times because I got it stuck on my camera. That's not that's not something you should worry about. That is 100% user error. I was just being dumb. And but the quality of the glass in the middle is not amazing. The other thing about this, and I think I'm wrong about this, but there's no way that I can figure out on how to modify the aperture on the lenses once it's attached. So all my lenses shoot wide open when I have this attached, and they also, because again, these are not autofocus lenses, they don't have motors in them, these are all going to shoot wide open, and they're going to shoot with no autofocus. So this is actually kind of a fun idea, I think, and that idea being that you can shoot with these lenses, but you can really, you have to focus on the quality of the composition, and you have to focus on your focusing, because the camera's not going to do it for you. Now, if you're shooting with a Canon camera, adapting these lenses, Canon cameras don't have focus peaking traditionally in their cameras, but in some cases you can actually have the you can have a firmware modification on your camera, which will allow you to do that. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but for those of you who have done that before, you know what I'm talking about. So first things first, we need to put this adapter on one of our lenses. Okay, so I'm going to start with the 100 mil, and what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to go ahead and take the cap off. Okay, and then we're just going to slide this guy on, just like so. And then when you hear the click, you know that it's on. So now we've got this adapter on. So now it should fit onto our Canon EOS camera. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off this lens here. And we're going to go ahead and top this one on, just like this. And then there you go. So now we have our Canon FD lens attached to our Canon 7D Mark I. And now you can actually see, that this unit is now attached, and it is wide open. I think we should test this. So let's take this out and see how it looks. Okay, so it's a little closer to golden hour, and I'm gonna head out and take some photos with those FD lenses. I've got the 135mm mounted to the Canon 7D, and I'm gonna head out and take some photos. One thing I also try and remember is that, you don't have to go far from home to get good photos. So I'm actually just gonna go right down the street and see what I can find. Normally I would walk, but it is currently 108 degrees, so I'm gonna drive. All right, let's check it out. So I'm walking around the neighborhood. There's a lot of home construction in my area, and got the Canon with the manual lens, and I'm just kind of looking for interesting shapes, just interesting composition. So this is a 135mm lens, but I've got it on the Canon 7D, so the 7D is a crop sensor, and you got to remember that the FD lenses are designed for a 35mm camera, or a full frame camera, so you're going to still experience that 1.6 crop like you would with any other Canon full frame lens. So I've kind of found a spot that I want to shoot in, but the other thing to remember is that because you're shooting wide open, or at least I am in this case, the only control that you're going to have is over your ISO and your shutter speed. So you really got to make sure that when you're metering that you dial that in and not leave it on auto. Sometimes it's just not going to come out right. So shooting with 135mm cropped, so 200-ish, without IS, that is hard. You got to stay steady. And it's really nice that it's bright out here, because I can shoot at, I'm shooting it right now at 1/2000th at ISO 100. But if I was shooting any slower, or if I was shooting indoors or in a darker setting, this would be practically impossible. Okay, so I found another spot that I want to shoot. It's just this fence along this road here. And I really thought that using the shallow depth of field out of the 135mm with the f2.8 would be kind of cool looking. Also, there's shade right here, which is really nice, which is going to help in two ways. Number one, it's going to help me because it is kind of warm out here. But number two, it's going to keep the lens from shooting directly into the sun, which could will prevent flaring. I'm going to use the hood, have that flares, no flares. We'll see how that goes. I'll try it with and without. We'll kind of see how it looks. Okay, so I'll be kind of interested to see how those look when we take a look at them in the computer. I am seeing through the viewfinder a lot of what looks like chromatic aberration, a lot of blue and yellow shifting. We'll see how it looks. Okay, so now I am just a little ways up the road, and I want to try out the 28mm 2.8. I'm going to be shooting at 2.8, and I'm going to be facing towards these kind of mountains out here. You can kind of see them there, kind of out that way. I gotta try and avoid, you know, getting the supermarket in the photo, but we'll do our best to crop that out. So the 28mm is actually really interesting. I was trying to find some good compositions. It definitely gives you a lot more field of view, but on the crop, that's not great. It's more like 45mm or so. So I'm going to swap out the 28, go to the 100mm, and I want to try and get some interesting compositions. Kind of the point here is I know these photos are not going to be just amazingly sharp and super in focus like you'd find in a modern camera that has, you know, 63 cross type, you know, AF points. I'm not going to have access to any of that. So what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to up my game in improving, number one, my focus through the viewfinder, but also my just generally my composition. Trying to improve how I compose each photo. So far, I might end up with one or two that I really like, but that's part of the purpose of this exercise, is to try and improve the quality of my composition. So I've taken some photos with the 100mm, the 135, and the 28. The sun's about to go down, so I'm gonna head back home and I'm gonna pop this card into the computer and we'll take a look and see how some of these photos turned out. Okay, so we're back at the office and we're gonna go ahead and take these photos, throw them into Lightroom, and kind of take a look at them real close and see how they looked. Okay, so now we're in Lightroom, and I've imported all the photos that we took. I've ditched the ones that are just absolutely terrible, where I missed focus completely, or where maybe I just under or overexposed the photo because I wasn't paying attention to my meter. But so here's one of the photos that I took, and actually I want to go ahead and skip ahead just to this. This was just kind of an interesting kind of swerve in the middle of the road that I found. And so I want to zoom in here, and the first thing that I notice is a decent amount of aberration. You can see right there where it gets pretty bad when you're looking at those shadows, those contrasty areas. And then you'll also notice that there's a lot of it in the out of focus areas. So what I want to see really quick is how much we can fix this within Lightroom. So I'm going to go ahead into lens corrections, and I'm going to go ahead and click on remove chromatic aberration, and I'm going to see if that does anything. Now I'm going to go into manual because it doesn't look like that did much, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of sample here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll scroll down here and sample right there, and I'm going to do the same thing on the green side. All right, well, it looked like it pulled some of it out, so let's go ahead and zoom out. The problem you can run into in some cases is that it'll actually pull out a lot of your contrast. So if we go ahead and check that, that actually doesn't look too bad. So on the left-hand side of each of these effects or controls inside Lightroom, you have the ability to actually turn them on and off. So I'm gonna turn this one on and off. And I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in here and see what it looks like. On and off. Okay, that actually does a pretty decent job. So not too bad. The sharpness in this photo actually isn't too bad at all. If you actually look at where I was focusing right here on these concrete kind of seams, you can see that, the sharpness was actually not too bad. So a lot of chromatic aberration. Now this is with the 135mm. A lot of chromatic aberration, but it looks like most of it was repaired. And if we look at those out of focus elements, they look quite a bit better as well. Like I said, this is not going to be a tack sharp photo, but not bad at all. Okay, so I want to go ahead and switch to the shots that I took with the fence. Okay, so first of all, if we cycle through these, you can see this is without the hood, this is with the hood, this is out of the shade, with and without the hood. I see no difference whatsoever in these photos. So there's no flaring, nothing like that. So everything actually looks pretty good. Again, this is still with 135mm, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll, or rather zoom in here, and you can see definitely quite a bit of fringing, quite a bit of purple and green fringing around the contrasty areas. Let's see if that gets any better. So a little bit worse, it looks like when we threw the hood up. About the same, maybe even worse with the in the sun rather, and in the sun with the hood up. Okay, so of all these photos, I'm going to say that this first one here actually kind of looks the best. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove these other ones. Okay, and yeah. So now if we go with this one and we turn on our lens corrections, and then we go into profile here, remove chromatic aberration. And I'm going to go into that manual profile again, and I'm going to sample kind of our purple areas here. I'm going to really kind of zoom in here. You can see that's real bad. And if we go down in here, you can kind of see the green fringing down on the other side here. And let's really kind of kick that up. Okay, so it looks like it's removed a lot of that. So if we turn that off and then we turn it on again, you can see a considerable amount of the fringing has been removed. That actually looks quite a bit better. And then with adding some contrast and some saturation back, and then maybe doing some sharpening, you could probably get quite a bit out of this photo. If you zoom in here to the fence, you can definitely see a change there in terms of the aberration. It's still there a little bit in these highlight areas, but definitely worth trying out. Okay, so I want to scroll through just some of these. All right, so this was shot with the 28mm, and I shot directly into the sun. I did that on purpose. A little bit of purple fringing here, which I think we can just kind of fix right there. Now it's gone. And yeah, that looks really nice. Not too bad. Out of focus elements are okay. A little busy, not as smooth as maybe you'd want. And this photo is definitely not super sharp, but just kind of interesting, not too bad. Also shot this with the 28, just was looking for something with a little bit of texture. Not too bad. I might not have hit the focus on this one as well as I'd like, but not terrible. And then this one was shot with the okay, and then this was shot with the 100mm. I was just looking for something with a little bit of contrast, a little bit of detail. It looks like I underexposed this, so I'm just gonna let Lightroom auto-tune this and just kind of see how it looks. So interesting here. So decent sharpness, definitely some chromatic aberration here, but here's something to look at. You see these bokeh balls, these out of focus elements? There wasn't anything really shiny back there. There wasn't anything glistening. These are just rocks. That is really busy. That is really distracting. That would make it very difficult to use that photo. Those are probably the result of the converter that's converting the FD lens onto the EF body. That's probably where that's coming from. That thing is probably adding quite a bit of that. Okay, but otherwise not too bad. So if you took one of these photos and you kind of auto adjusted it here. Maybe you wanted something super contrasty, so you want to bring the shadows down a little bit, or maybe you just want to throw on a Lightroom preset that you've got that you like a lot. I'm just going to go ahead and throw on one of Peter McKinnon's, his heat stroke, or there we go, Kodak Summer. That's fitting considering the fact that we're shooting this with an analog lens. So you can do stuff like that. So definitely a lot of opportunity for just doing interesting stuff with these lenses. I kind of want to try and find a better adapter that maybe is a little bit higher quality that also allows me to better control the aperture on the lenses so I can stop them down a bit and improve the clarity. But second, shooting with these lenses, shooting in a way that you're unable to autofocus, and also the fact that they're all prime, so there's no zoom, means that you have to spend quite a bit of time working on your composition, which I didn't here. This is just run outside and take some photos. But it was hard. It was hard to even find things to photograph. So thinking about that quite a bit is gonna be a bigger deal. And you kind of have to, you really have to pick and choose what you're gonna photograph, which is a lot more like what you'd have to experience if you were shooting with film. So for those of you who are shooting with film, I have much respect for you. That is a difficult medium, considering the fact that you don't really have a whole lot of opportunity to recompose. You got to spend a lot of time composing your photos before you pull the trigger. Well, I hope you liked this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you're interested in things like this, if you're interested in more stuff like this, go ahead and leave me a comment on this video. If you're shooting with analog lenses, with manual lenses, I would love to see that. Go ahead and link that in the comments and I'll take a look at it. And I'd love to see what you're working on. Go ahead and hit the like button. That helps the algorithm do all the things that make other videos of mine reach other people. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing. So if this is interesting to you, then go ahead and hit subscribe and we'll send stuff your way. The only way for you to know though that I post new videos is to hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That's super helpful. That way you know when stuff is coming. While you're waiting for my next video, go ahead and check out some of the other videos that I've made if you haven't seen them yet. And leave a comment, hit the like button, let me know what you're interested in, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.